we're missing someone. We don't have a quorum, right? We need,
Hold on.
Yeah, you
they
need
were
at
all
least-
at the last meeting, really.
Yeah, and then I resent I resent the stuff right before the meeting, so that way everybody would have the link in.
Let me see if Steve texts me. I know Patsy's going to be a minute late, but we just need one more person to actually start.
What are the last four of Patsy's phone numbers? It's 7512.
Let me see if I have it. It's in here somewhere.
All right, well, while we're waiting, I will entertain a motion on the Finance Committee to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Out to us. I have a motion. Did I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any questions, discussions? There being none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, I will do a roll call vote. John? Yes or
Yes.
no? Keith, yes or no?
Yes.
Jason, yes or no?
Yes.
Kristen, yes or no?
Yes.
I vote yes, that is a vote.
What about Joe?
I don't,
You don't have your video on, you lose.
yeah, I don't see, I'm sorry, Joe, if you're there, I don't see you.
Yeah, we're only allowed one video in the house and the chairman gets it, so
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
otherwise it gets a little sketchy. I vote aye, by the way, or yes.
Hank,
All
Hank,
right.
it's Carol. I'm here.
Oh,
Oh,
Carol's here too.
We're all here, all seven of us. Okay. Then it's a 7-0. Got that, Ashley? Thank you, Ashley.
And I also just want to let the Finance Committee know, I put in the Dropbox late this afternoon, the warrant articles, and we have it's a draft with draft motions.
Andrew, as we're going through this, are you going to be sharing your screen and showing that to us as we go?
I can do that. Sure, give me 1 second.
Unfortunately, I've only got a small tablet, so I can't follow along a document and participate at the same time.
We know anyone.
Unless I can, I don't. Is there a way to do this? I don't think so.
All right, I'm gonna pull up the special
Aaron,
meeting one.
Aaron,
Hello?
is this what's left on your meeting is to go through the warrant?
Yeah, we were going to do that together, but we don't have a quorum. We had two people, they're both coming on. Was David going to join us or was he done,
No,
Andrew? I thought,
he was not joining us for this part.
but Steve Crono should be on. I think he must be having technical difficulties.
Okay.
And Patsy is going to be, yeah, he's trying right now. He just sent me a quick text, so.
Okay.
Sorry. Technology is a great thing when it works.
I'm just trying to figure out how to look at a folder or a file and look at you at the same time. Now, I'm just curious, did I go away? Do you see or did I
We
freeze?
see you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because I can bring up the articles and look at them at least this way, and then maybe flick back and forth between the meeting. Thank you, Don. I appreciate this.
Now you got a quorum.
Oh, there's Steve. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. All right, we have a quorum. We're back from recess.
There's the articles. All right, so how do we want to start this, Karen? I'll let you direct us.
Well, traditionally, what do? We do typically just go article by article and, Andrew, yes? You want
Yeah.
to read or?
Yeah.
We don't have to read them all, right?
No. You could just go each article at a time and I'll.
All right, so the first article, the appropriation of funds for unpaid bills of a prior fiscal year.
So I'll jump in. Currently, I have not heard from any department that there is any out there. So I had done motion if there was some, and then I did an alternate motion to pass over indefinitely since right now we don't have any.
Okay. We good? Ready to move on? So Article 2, intra-departmental transfers and/or appropriations for FY 2021 budget. Donna, you want to talk to this?
Sure. So I put in a couple of them that I knew about. I did ask departments to try to get back to me today if they had any that I wasn't aware of. First item I have is $3,000 for the Board of Appeals operating budget. We had only funded half of a year on the salary. This will bring it so we can fund the second half of the year. That would be coming from free cash. The next one is cable operating budget for FY21. Similar, we had only funded through September, the end of September. And this will get them through the rest of the year at 63,000, and it'll be from free cash. I don't know, we originally held off on that one because we were trying to get the contract settled, but no, Andrew, if you can update us on that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of really still going back and forth with Charter on this contract. The biggest fight has been the impacts of the contract versus the revised FCC regulations, and we're having a hard, a lot of back and forth as far as agreed upon language to mitigate the impacts of that. So Charter's been a little slow on getting back to us with suggested edits, but we've also been fighting with them because we believe that they should have never stopped paying us for the cable subscription fees in the first place. We should still be we should at least be under this prior agreement and compensated in accordance with that until the until the next contract is signed, and then whenever that contract is signed, then what the difference between the two contracts should, they should pay for that amount, not 2 years in back payments. So, we got a couple of fights on that end, but we're just hoping to wrap up this contract soon and get that money back into cable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
The next one is the OPEB trust. We did not fund that according to our funding plan. We had made the determination in the spring to wait until fall when we had free cash. That would be $250,000 from free cash. The next one is to FY21 HR contract obligations. Approximately $51,600 would be to pay out the police chief his vacation and sick that he's entitled to upon retirement. And that's also from free cash. Then we have FY21 to the Board of Selectmen's contract obligations, $15,000 from free cash. And I wrote Police Chief Assessment Center, but I think I'd rather just call it Assessment Center. That way it could be used for the police chief or lieutenant if need be during the year.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the sick and vacation payout. Donna, what's the town policy for paying out vacation time? And the question is really about when do employees accrue versus when are they entitled to all of their pay?
Are you talking, he's under an employment contract, so are you talking the employment contract or the personnel board?
Well, I'd ask both if they're different. In other words, an employee who has 4 weeks vacation, day one of a new fiscal year, they decide they're going to work. Day two, they decide they're going to retire. They get 4 weeks paid.
So part of that, Joe, is that they're actually, when they're accruing, is actually the accrual from the prior year. So when they start, they basically have essentially a year that they're not getting that time. So the accrual that they're getting is based off of what's been earned from the prior year.
Which would be through the sheriff based on their current contract, of course, right? And there are some individual contracts out there that vary.
This is, basically across the board. If the board were to award vacation time at the beginning of a contract, like before that person had worked, and they said that, all right, day one you're getting X vacation time, then that's being put ahead of them actually earning it. The policy though is that, they really don't earn that vacation time until they've already worked a year, and then they get the accrual on the July 1.
So they accrue in the prior year and then it's granted in the subsequent year?
Correct.
So they can't take any vacation time the first year?
I have to double check. I think the first year it's actually a 6-month. They get a initial accrual after 6 months.
So I work for 6 months and then you give me half of my vacation time and
And then
Take
at
it,
July 1, you get the difference.
because like normal, so I know I look young, like I don't have tons of experience, but I've been an auditor and I've been looking at payroll for a bajillion years. And what I always find is that, so I get 4 weeks a year, and then every pay period I accrue that percentage of my vacation and my sick time and all that as I go. So I'm halfway in and I've accrued half of my vacation time. It's the normal place that I've never not seen it done that way, except for at a very high level executive corporation, and that's even rare. So it seems and then also while I'm on my little high horse talking about payroll, what do we have for a rule for rollover? So at the end of the year, is there a maximum amount I can roll over so an employee doesn't leave and we owe them hundreds of thousands of dollars in vacation and accrual? Because we have to, that's a big liability that the town has to pay attention to.
There is a cap on rollover. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I know that there is a cap on both sick and vacation time.
So I'm just going to jump in on most of the stuff. There's a 1 week max on rolling over vacation. We did have 2 weeks, I think. We had an extra week this year added because of the COVID, and a lot of people couldn't take vacation. And on sick, typically you don't, personal time, you don't get paid out, and sick time, most of the contracts, I believe, read 45 days max that you can get paid out for sick time. So even if you've accumulated 120 days, say, you wouldn't get paid for all of it. It's capped at the 45 days for a payout, and only upon retirement, not if you leave.
And that's standard. Is that written in contracts? Is that standard?
That's
That 45-day payout. So it's in, so the police chief, in that $51,000 that there's not more than 45 days being.
That was in the personnel bylaw, which is now being used as the framework for the personnel policy.
So I believe if it's not covered specifically under a union contract, then it's going to defer back to that personnel regulation.
So I guess net, if I may go back, the 51.6 represents what? 45 days of sick and the rest is vacation?
There's 9 weeks of vacation and 45 days sick.
And I'm sorry, I don't know the contract, but how do we get to 9 weeks?
You probably rolled over 1 year for 9 years.
He rolled over 2 and he gets 7 according to the contract.
And what was last year's grant? Because he shouldn't get 7 until last year's. Or what, did the contract go retroactive?
Contract was retroactive.
So he took no vacation time last year over above what he had the year prior.
He had at least 2 weeks remaining that he was able to roll over from the prior year.
No, that's not what I'm asking. You said, the comment was, you get your vacation time in fiscal year 2 that you earned in fiscal year 1. So what you're saying is the chief rolled over 2 weeks plus got 7 more weeks, which I don't understand how he could roll over 2 weeks if you didn't grant him any vacation time in the first year. So let's go back to ask that question again when I get done ranting. And then he now has 9 weeks vacation.
But this
So-
wasn't the first year of his contract, so he's had multiple contracts.
He's been here for multiple years.
But I guess I don't understand that, so he only could roll over 2 weeks, and then he's using so on July 1st, he was given 7
more?
weeks of vacation on July 1st.
Right, everybody gets it on July 1st.
So that's that accrual problem. I think that after this meeting, we all need to discuss that accrual. That's just a huge, I would love to know right now if everybody in the town left, how much we would have to pay every employee out at this very moment in time. Because that's kind of scary.
Well,
But-
sorry, Patsy, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I would ask, how many people retire before the fiscal year's over? Because if we're granting on day one, we're granting all the vacation time, then it wouldn't be a shock to me to see everybody leave within 4 weeks of the new fiscal year and take all that vacation time and say thank you. So I don't want to rat hole this meeting more than we already have, but I think that, Mr. Chair, we need to look at this deeply, because I agree with Selectman Ridlack. This could be a huge liability to the town, and frankly, I agree with Ms. Ridlack. Businesses don't do it that way.
They don't, yeah.
Great.
All right.
Very good points.
Yep. Good
Sorry,
conversation.
I put myself on. Ashley, would you make a note of that, please, in our minutes, that that's an action item?
Yes.
Okay, where were we?
Is everybody okay with me just changing that wording from Police Chief Assessment Center to just Assessment Center?
Yes.
Okay.
How about if anyone on the select board objects, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Oh, I'm fine with it.
I'm good.
I'm fine with it. If I may, I have a question on the, on item 2.
Okay, but
Just,
Bill, Steve, can you just hold 1 second so we can make sure that's okay with the finance board? And then and then you can ask a question. Hank, do you have anyone that you all good with that? Uh-oh, he's muted.
Thank you, muted.
Thank you, muted.
Yep, got it.
There we go.
Anybody have an objection with Donna changing the wording on that from police chief assessment to just assessment?
I do not, and I would say that it probably is very in alignment with the vote that was taken prior at the selectmen meeting.
Great, now, if I may, Hank, I'll go back to Steve because I know Selectman Cronus had a question or a comment.
It was just really just a question. So that for OPED, so it's $250,000 from free cash. Is that, I didn't look at the town report from last year. Is that typical what we put into that every year, or is that more, or is that less?
That's the same that we put in, Steve, each and every year. At least that's our goal. That's our goal.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it has, in years past, it has also been one of the first places we've rated when we needed to come up with some extra cash for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's going along with what Patsy said earlier. That's a long-term, that's a concern for mine as well, that we keep that fund.
Yeah, that we keep that going, because that's, and that 250 is based on what, Donna, we pay it all off in 50 years, or we down to 48 years?
When I started like 2 years ago, so it's the 40 year.
Right.
I think it was 40 years that I tried to do it over.
So at that rate, Steve, we'd pay off our unfunded liability in 38 more years. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so the last item I have under Article 2 is for FY21 Water Enterprise Capital. This would be coming from Water Enterprise retained earnings. It's for a water line repair, and I don't have the dollar amount yet. They're waiting. Pete was waiting for the contractor to give him a number. And he's here. If you have any questions, he's online with us.
Do anyone from the select board have questions?
Karen, through you.
Yep, Bill?
Hey, Pete, can you ballpark us with like a back of envelope number on this?
I'm gonna say $40,000 to $60,000.
Cool.
We
Thank
had
you.
two major breaks on Route 20 that took some serious work to repair, both separate overnight timeframes. So with asphalt, with everything, my hopefully ballpark for both is between 40 to 60 coming from retained earnings. Which for water is at right about 260,000 to 270,000 possibly. So there's definitely enough there.
Thank you for that.
Great, thank you.
Hank, I don't know if anyone on your board has any
Yeah,
questions?
anything from our side, other than the only comment I may start with is, you know, there was concern about us lumping a whole bunch of different requests into one particular motion. All right, does anybody see anything in this motion? I mean, we've got the, you know, the retirement pay, we've got OPEB, we've got a couple of other things. Anybody see any reason that somebody give us a question on bundling this together?
Hank, I'm glad you brought that up. I have that concern around Article 4, but on Article 2, knowing that these are mostly contractual and or really true requirements, I think, again, famous last words, I think we're okay on this one. I think Article 4 is going to be a different conversation, but I appreciate where you're coming from on it.
Yeah. All right.
So
anybody-
since we have the voting, yes, no voting, you could do each one separately.
Hank, if I could offer a suggestion, what if we separated everything above 50K?
Okay. Yeah, that's right, Jay. There was some mention that, yeah, if there was some parameter there, anything above that. So does that require us to have separate motions?
You could do more than one motion within the article.
We can do multiple motions within an article. So if to Jay's point, we had a motion for the $250,000 and then we had a motion for the $56,000. Is that, do you think that would go better at the town meeting? Address that issue? That's my point.
Yeah, Hank, I see where you're coming from, and I agree actually with what Bill had mentioned. I think for this particular warrant article, I would leave it because, you know.
They're all pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, others, but again, just my opinion, and feel free to chime in.
Yeah, Karen, I'm with you on this one only because these seem more true obligations as opposed to. I think I know everything's discretionary at the end of the day, but realistically, when we're talking about trade-offs like in Article 4, I think that's when it really hits home as opposed to, you know, look, we really got to fund OPEB, and if we don't, okay, but that's a different conversation.
Right.
All right, so Finance Committee, fine with leaving this warrant article as is without breaking it up? All right, I hear no objection to that. We'll agree to leave it as is.
All right.
Okay. Article 3, this is an amendment to the FY21 budget. There was, if you recall, on the regular budget, there's an appropriation that we took from Prindle Dam. There wasn't enough funds. We're about 7,600 short. And so I'm recommending that we reduce Prindle Dam, that we spent 7,600 less, and do it by taxation for 7,600, and that will get us back into balance again.
All right. Any questions?
Karen, only through, why did we fall short again?
Part of it is we're trying to estimate, and we delayed the tax bills collection, so we were estimating how much we would take in, and at the time of the town meeting, we were 7,600 short.
All right. So it sounds like we don't have much of a choice, quite honestly.
Right. It's more of a housekeeping. We did it last year with cable, if you remember last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right, I'm good.
And then what everybody's waiting for, Article 4, the capital plan. So I listed everything down. I don't know if you want to just have me read them or discuss on each one, or.
My suggestion, read through them first and make a note as we go along, just say, I want to talk about it, and then when we get to the end, we'll pick up those few items that need to be talked about.
You want to just say hold and I'll
Yeah, yeah.
notate it?
No,
Okay.
no, we won't stop talking about that one at that moment. We'll just make a note. We're gonna come back and talk about this one, this one, this
Okay.
and
Or it could be me.
All right,
Yeah.
conservation, request for a fence at South Charlton Dam, 21,000 from free cash. Planning board, master plan update, 50,000 from free cash. Information technology replacements and improvement, 75,000 from free cash. Police, 2 cruiser replacements, 118,561 from free cash. Fire EMS, replace squad 1, 60,000 from free cash. Fire EMS, replace ambulance 2, 300,000 from ambulance receipt reserve for appropriation. Town administrator, town-wide radio project, 250,000 from free cash. Highway, John Deere loader, 203,500 from free cash. Cemetery, replace 1993-18 flat deck equipment trailer, 7,500 from free cash. Library, 2 Honeywell Spider controllers, $8,840 from free cash. Library, paint exterior windows on original building, 6,192 from free cash. Water enterprise and sewer enterprise are requesting a new pickup truck, split 50% of the cost to each of the enterprise funds, 20,500 from water enterprise, water retained earnings, and 20,500 from the sewer enterprise retained earnings. That's the list.
that's the list. And I didn't hear anybody have a particular question on any one of those items. I know that as a finance committee, we talked about these a little while ago, and we were pretty comfortable with what Andrew and Donna had come up with. But to Bill's point, maybe we'll take a look at those, and any one that's over, what was the number you said, Jay? $50,000? We'll take as a separate motion and let everybody debate that one motion. A couple of library ones can go together as a single motion. And unfortunately, I don't have it right in front of me because I can't figure out how to do both screens at the same time. But we could break it up that way, all right?
By
So you want-
library, by water enterprise on highway, and do it one by one.
Yeah.
By department?
We could, yeah, you're right, Patsy. We could do it by department too. Or if there's any one, like the fire ambulance, I think that one should go by itself. Okay?
I agree.
That kind of stuff.
Yep. Because it'll be quick, right? With the new voting devices, it seems like, you know, these are done in minutes.
Yeah. I do have a question just on the, this, because I know I'm going to get asked on this, on the town-wide radio project. Does anybody know what that entails, and how is that different from the public safety building project?
So,
Andrew can answer that.
right. So essentially what it is, you know, the dispatch center itself is what is included in the actual public safety building project. But with the radio system, you have, you know, the base radios, which is in that, you know, in the dispatch center, which then are transmit over to repeaters, which is your kind of outside the field, your antenna bases. And then those repeat back to the actual radio. So that's your basic, you know, radio system. Right now, the current system, there's a significant, you know, it's an older system. There's a number of dead spots that are known throughout the town. And the radios are, you know, pretty antiquated. The fire department just received a grant for replacement of a number of their like personal radios. So what we're trying to do with this project is address the dead spots and that intermediary infrastructure. we did have some early, some earlier estimates on what that cost would be, and I think it was around $500,000. So this would essentially be phase one of that project, and the project itself would address police, fire, and DPW. So our office is putting it on there as we're taking the lead to try to bring, head up all three departments rather than putting it into one department, or rather than assigning either fire, police, or DPW to be the lead on it.
Okay, very good. Thanks. I think, yeah, that's going to be that's a big number. So people.
Yeah, Steve, I was a little surprised when I first heard about the large budget number over a couple of departments and even over a couple of years that it's going to take to get our radio system up and running. And I even questioned when we were given the public building presentation there a month or so ago. And I saw that line item in there for communications or radios of like $400,000. I thought maybe this was the same money, okay? And then I saw the fire department got its grant, and I'm saying, well, geez, maybe we can reduce. But these are all different components, as has been explained to me, okay? And each piece, I think, Andrew, a lot of this money is going to be spent on the actual towers themselves. To get rid of those dead
essentially the repeaters. We did a similar project in Palmer 5 years ago, and we had built a new communication center at the time. And without the communication center, the cost of the total project was in that $500,000 to $800,000 range. So that's I think that's a pretty good ballpark as far as what I think this project will end up costing.
Okay.
But that project also did include the radio, the actual end user radios as well. So we did get the grant for a good portion of that. So that's why I think that 500,000 is probably the range at what total project cost that we're looking at.
And Hank, thanks for that. I felt the same way. I saw that line item on the public safety bill.
I know it. And we're not talking about $50 here, Steve. We're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Karen and Hank, I have a generic question that may end up being a different conversation for a different night, but are all these on our capital list? And if not, why not?
Or what? I didn't hear that actually.
Oh, sorry. Basically, are all these items on our existing capital plan ask? And if they're not, either why aren't they? And two, if they're not, how did they make the list?
No, many of them are, Bill. In fact, I think they all are. These are all pieces that have been on the plan. And have you been supplied? We've actually got Donna put together a great capital list that goes out 10 years as far as the fire department goes, and 5 years as far as everyone else goes.
I haven't seen one recently. I'm sure it exists, but Andrew and Donna, maybe that's something prior to just kind of like a best practice on a go forward, that list is like distributed to both FinCom and the Board of Selectmen prior to the free cash ask. Only because I suppose my point being, and Hank, you just made me feel better about it, that as long as it's on the list and we're doing it, that makes me feel better. It's when stuff gets like bump stuff on the list, I think that we need to justify it more. But if all these are already on it, I'm not sweating it. So again, that's probably just, Karen, just something to think about for us and Steve and Patsy, just kind of a best practice going forward. But beyond that, I'm good then, Hank. I trust you.
Okay.
So
I will mention that there were two items that were probably added. They were definitely added before last spring, but they weren't on like the 5-year plan. One was the master plan.
Yeah.
We found out that was about two, maybe a year and a half. When we jointly met, we talked about it the last time. And the other one was the fence at South Charlton Dam, which became an issue after an injury. So sometimes you do have stuff that falls and doesn't come right up. But these were all what we discussed last spring when we were going through all of it.
The more that we can check the box of stuff to get off that list, I think the easier it is to justify to taxpayers of, look, it's been on the list, we're getting rid of it. I mean, and Donna, to your point, stuff's always going to come up and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just as long as the vast majority are ones that have been prioritized prior to, I have zero complaints.
And what I liked about the Excel spreadsheet that Donna put together, it goes back to 2014.
Yeah.
So Bill, you could actually go back and say, you know, like here's what we've done over the last 6 years,
Yep.
okay? This department got this department got that, and how it all fit into the long plan. Yeah, it's
No,
very
yeah,
good. Very
No, definitely works for me. All right, I'm good.
So just to circle back to make sure we all are literally on the same page regarding how we're separating these out. It looks like just about everything is being pulled out. I mean, conservation is going to be separate, the 21,000, 50,000 separate, 75, everything until you get down to, well, cemetery is separate. The library we're going to combine, right? Did we said by department. And then water and sewer, well, are we going to combine those two as well? Water enterprise, sewer enterprise? Are we going to, Pete, do you have a recommendation there?
No, I think Pete can make the argument for both if it's questioned. I think, you know, that's a department.
And it's under 50. It actually totals under 50.
They
so-
need both because it's one truck, right? They're each paying for half, so it needs to be
it's for
together.
one
If you
vehicle.
separate it and one passes and one doesn't, they only can have half a
Well,
truck.
that's up to him to explain, but no, that's fine. And that's the other thing, you know, I know someone usually gets up and makes a case for something or against it. And with the little voting things, you know, it is important to make sure there's a representative there to speak on behalf of the request, just in case, you know, so that's my.
I have a quick novice question through the chair. On the IT $75,000 expenditure, does that include any upgrades to the email, the townwide email? Yeah, the town's email. Does anybody know?
I don't believe we actually just are conducting a upgrade to the email server. It'll go into Office 365. I believe that this is more just general maintenance and upgrades. Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious because when I try to log in, I get all those security errors. So, and he told me I can't change my password without going to the town hall, so I figured maybe.
Yeah, I think it was actually just implemented that way, so.
Thanks.
Just missed out on the easier way of getting it.
Kristen, if you think that's fun, you should try using some of the systems we have.
And Patsy, that being the reason why it's in this and not the operating, of course, because this wasn't meant to pay for, say, subscriptions for Office or things like that. This was meant to upgrade servers, upgrade switches, and so I think, Donna, is this the third year now we've done $75,000? We used to do like 45, and then maybe we went 50, but we pretty much settled in now on a $75,000 per year investment in our infrastructure, technology infrastructure.
Yeah.
Thank
And you
you.
actually probably had a little bit more than 75,000 invested in FY20 that was covered by insurance from the cyber attack when we had some servers get damaged with the cyber attack. And we were able to get some laptops through the CARES Act to have some people working remote. So,
And then I believe, Donna, we got a grant as well for a new backup system so that the cyber attack doesn't happen.
that too. The cyber attack did a lot of damage. There's no doubt about it. But for the most part, we've recovered. Building's still a little bit behind, and we're addressing that as well.
Thank you for the info.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is as we get better at budgeting out this over time, there are going to be certain items that are going to be recurring almost every year. Technology, I think, being one. We need 2 new police cars every year. I mean, it's always a request, and if you look at the history of our police cars, it's going to be there for the next umpteen years. Every 3 years, a new fire truck. Right. So there are going to be those, you know, you can almost put them in there now and just hit repeat, going down. Our problem will be when we get too many of those and they outstrip our free cash. That's when we got to get a little careful. Okay. So that's just my comment on technology, on that technology, that's $75,000. So we know how we're going to break it up. We're going to support the bill as a total, but what are we doing on the motion? So if we already know that we're going to break these up into again, I don't have my chart in front of me, 5 different motions. Okay, are we supporting each motion?
Hank, just for me, I don't have any issues with like any of these. So I would just say that for myself, I would support literally however we break it up. I'd support every motion.
Okay. Karen, you happy with that? Because you guys are the ones that are going to be introducing the motion, okay?
Yep. Yeah, I'm fine with that, but what we discussed and how we discussed breaking it up and yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, we want to keep going? Are we good on?
Yeah.
on-
Let's move, Hank. Let's move it.
Okay, we're going to Article 5. This is a transfer of the to and from stabilization that you put on every year. So I'm going to start, they're not in order of how they appear here, but they're kind of in order how I'm going to explain it to you anyways. Water Stabilization Fund, we're going to put $61,900 into it from the Public Water Supply Capital Project, the Gale Road project. If you recall, I think it was about a year ago that we had gotten, we appropriated money for that project, and then we requested reimbursement from the state, and we received the money from the state, but in order to get it into the stabilization fund, we have to actually take a vote at a town meeting to put it into the stabilization fund. So kind of like restoring back. I do have here tentatively 2 water stabilization fund from water retained earnings. I didn't put a dollar amount. I wasn't sure, depending on the water line project, whether we would have any funds to put into stabilization fund. Peter, do you want to join in on that at all? Do you think there'll be anything?
I don't. I don't think we'll be transferring anything from water retained earnings to the water stabilization. As far as the $61,900, that's our reimbursement for the purchase of property that we bought at Gale Road. When we purchased the property for, I believe it was right around $125,000. We were also awarded a 50% match grant from the state to purchase that property for public water supply. So those funds finally came in, and now we just have to put them back into water stabilization, which is where the funds came from to purchase the property. As far as sewer stabilization, I believe we'll be probably be asking to transfer. I'm not sure if it's 600 or 650,000 from sewer retained earnings into the sewer stabilization fund. I'll finalize that request with Donna over the next few weeks, if that's okay.
Yep.
Great.
And then I also put on the fund stabilization fund, 167,000 from free cash. That would get us to comply with our own reserve policy. You're at liberty to go more than that. But I think I also had a question on whether we needed to have a separate article for a establishing a new stabilization fund for public safety complex or a municipal building improvement stabilization fund, and put money into that. I know we've had some conversations about showing a commitment, a funding source at a couple of meetings ago. And when we had the discussion about the public safety complex and whether we should set aside money into a separate stabilization fund for that purpose, we would be required to put a separate article on that said to establish that particular stabilization fund, and then you could put money into it.
I'd love to establish it, but not fund it, if that makes sense. Or we can just wait. I mean, basically, until the town votes, I'd rather not put any money in it.
I would agree with that statement.
Okay.
So, Donna, is that something we can do, though, is actually establish it without funding it?
You can establish it without funding it, but Unless there's a reason that you want to do that, I would kind of say wait until you're ready to fund it.
Bill, I don't think we want to go down that route just yet.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I was thinking about expediency and ease, but if it makes sense to do it next year,
Yeah, because we couldn't put money into it until next year anyway, at the same,
Right.
meeting. So why have it just hanging out there when we already know we're going to be asking them for a lot more money than that before then?
yeah. No, all right, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine waiting until whenever then.
Let's pass on that, Donna, please.
Okay,
But good idea then.
so those are the ins and outs are all going in, which is a good thing, all going into stabilization funds.
And Don, I'm assuming that 167 is like roughly 10% based upon what you said.
Correct. It would get us to the policy. It says a certain percentage of our
Yeah.
total budget.
Yeah.
But you can go over that. The policy was like, you should try to get up to that amount. You can certainly be over it.
Well, at least
Oh no, I'm sorry. What percentage of total free cash is that 167?
It wasn't a percentage of free cash. I think it was a percent of the total operating budget is at a minimum as where you want to
Yeah.
be.
All right.
And so we haven't even been close to that in
Yeah, right.
prior years. We're now hitting it. So it's kind of your call whether you want to go up and higher or not.
Yeah, the question though that maybe Bill was asking, what was our certified free cash for the year?
Right.
For this year?
1,749,505.
Yeah.
So it's
So
slightly
we're roughly 10%.
All right, but we're close to 10, all right? And I'm happy to see that this will put the balance at a little over $1.5 million, right? And to me, at this point, anything is an improvement, anything is working toward the goal. And our goal, I remember guys on the committee, wasn't it 10% of our
10%.
annual operating budget?
Yeah, 10% of
Which
ours.
means we'd really want to get $3 million.
Yeah.
Right. So we're still, now this gets us halfway there, all right? At $1.5 million, we're almost, we're halfway to our long-range goal. And you'll never
Yeah.
get it 1 year, but if we can get it over a time frame, I know I will be a happy person.
Yeah, Hank, I suppose where I was going with that is that might be something we want to talk about in the future, because I can't remember, honestly, because all the meetings blend together, if we've ever talked around of having a combined view of what do we want to allocate a percentage of free cash regardless every year, straight to it. You know what I mean? So our target is 10% of ops, but maybe something we talk around in the future is 10% of free cash or 15% of free cash. That's the first cut that goes directly into stabilization, which I'd be fine with, by the way. So I don't think we got to talk about it tonight, but maybe when we meet again, that's something that we throw up there.
Sure, we can do that. But it gets tough, Bill. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm with you. Let's at least have some framework, okay?
Exactly.
Because you got to start somewhere, right? And
So
you're
would
talking-
you feel, if we did 10%,
Put out a
approximately 10,
level-funded budget.
if we did approximately 10% and say 175,000, we could do
Right.
that.
But then we got to steal it from somewhere this year.
No, we
okay?
still have money in free cash.
Yeah, I know. You had that 90, what was it, 96? Andrew, I know that you would put a certain a sum aside, okay? That was
Yeah,
going to stay in free.
I know we were messing with, or we had to fluctuate some of the numbers here, so I don't have the exact total, but I think it was around 100,000 retained that we had remaining, and it was just, we were looking to hold that for, to see what the snow and ice deficit was going to be, so that we had a fund to go to at annual to fill that gap if we needed it, rather than taking it from existing funds.
But I'm okay with the 175. That's not much different than 167. That would get us at our 10% of free cash.
Hank,
Puts
it's
you
a
over the
symbolic
bottom
thing.
threshold.
Yeah, I mean, it's a symbolic thing, but if we can make it 10%, I think
You're right. It's symbolic. It's $8,000, but it encompasses what we've said we want to do.
Yeah, so
I will
I'm
ask.
in favor of it. So let's put it that way.
Right. Well, I'll let Karen ask you guys, but I'll ask the finance committee. Would you? I'll entertain a motion that we amend the warrant article as presented to include what'd you say, Donna,
175,000
175,000
to go into stabilization from free cash.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Joe made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. I will do a roll call vote. You got this, Ashley. John?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Carol? Carol, you're muted. Give me a thumbs up. All right. Joe?
Yes.
I vote yes. It's unanimous.
All right, how about on the Board of Selectmen?
Karen
Motion,
moved. Yeah, moved.
second, someone?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
Patsy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And I vote aye. David is not with us, so it passes. And again, it's the same motion that the FinCom voted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And as
Articles,
Chris said, we all
that's
know-
all for Article 5.
All right.
So Article 6 is a zoning map amendment. Tag, you're it, Andrew?
Yep. So Article 6 and 7, both zoning map amendments be petitioned by the planning board. Both of these are parcels off of Route 20, one by CVS and one by Treehouse. Both of these, I'm waiting for supplemental information from the planning board as far as a map to attach to this. So that'll be on the final warrant. Article 8, building height requirement. So this is adding the ability to of the planning board to allow for above 36 feet, but no more than 50 by special permit, rather than by variance, which is the current practice. I know this has been, I think Patsy might be able to speak to it, but it's been on the table for a while, but in front of the planning board, but they're looking to take action on it now, especially with a lot of the warehousing projects that are coming. They're realizing that this is an issue that's easier to handle on the planning board side versus the ZBA side. Similarly with parking, the off-street parking requirements. Right now, our current parking and loading requirements don't really take into account, again, those warehousing type uses where they have a low number of employees but a large building size. So rather than requiring an exorbitant amount of parking spaces for a large building and seeking a ZBA variance, making something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for warehousing manufacturing. And both of those, I will be getting the actual wording from the planning board with the crossed out and revised wording to include into the warrant, but just waiting on that before final passage. So.
Hey, Karen, I'm fine either way. Do we want, knowing these are so strictly zoning, do we want to defer to the planning board, or do we actually want to take a view on this? Historically,
Have we not? Donna, Andrew, you weren't around, but Donna, did we? I thought we did take a
In the past, you guys have always just shown your support in, the Board of Selectmen with these. And I'm sure that if anybody needs more information, it'll be shared, but having the planning board background, I can tell you that the variances always happen. It just, now the applicant has to go to another whole board to have something that's so very common sense. They have to make, and then the ZBA has to have a special meeting for something that the planning board could easily just do while they have the plan, while they have the site plan. So it just, again, it makes sense.
Yeah,
And
honestly,
Bill,
I'm fine with it. Yeah, I
Bill,
just can't remember if we ever actually did it before. Truly, I do.
So Bill, I think I'd like to keep us, showing our support, because lack of support may seem suspect to some who don't know, like all of a sudden, why are they not supporting this? So, I think it's a good thing, and I'd like to leave that on there. So
yeah, no worries.
I think it's safe. It's safe to say that, at least from what I see, that both of these articles are project specific anyway, right? So it's.
I mean, they seem pretty innocuous. And again, I have no issue. I was just curious.
So I look back and most of the time the Board of Selectmen does support, if they're going to support it. Finance Committee usually doesn't support one way or the other
Right.
unless they want to, unless there's a financial impact.
Hank, are
I don't see any
are you
reason
all
that
good
we need to
supporting it?
make any mo-
All right.
So I think what I'll do, Andrew, is I'll change where it says recommendation of the Finance Committee to recommendation of the Planning Board.
Usually it's both.
Planning board and board of selectmen.
Yeah,
Well, if the sponsor is the planning board, isn't it, given that they're
Yep.
supporting it? Right?
not necessarily. I think when I look back, it says recommendation of the Planning Board, and then the Planning Board will say what their vote was.
Yep, that's exactly what happens. And then the board, it's the both boards that,
Right,
But
planning. board and board
Finance
of-
usually doesn't weigh in unless there's a
Finance
financial
committee
interest.
does not. We've never weighed in on a planning board issue.
yeah.
I'll actually look for some clarification from the planning board, but the two zoning amendments, I believe, are actually property owner petition versus planning board. So, it may be supported by the planning board, but I believe that's actually the property owner is petitioning for these zoning amendments. So,
Yeah, but even with those, we've always, the planning board has always voted to support and not support.
okay, I just didn't know if they wanted to be listed as sponsor though. That was.
Yeah, I don't think it's the sponsor. I think it's just support this
Okay.
in the past, whether we want to change that policy, but in the past, it's always been they support her, and they've honestly not supported things in the past too.
But if those are citizens petitions, I'd like to know if those are citizens petitions, those.
They are.
Yeah, it would be really a citizen's petition. It's more of a property owner petition because they're not going out getting the statutory signatures from residents in order to get it on the warrant. They have the statutory right under the zoning act to petition for a zoning change of their own property.
So again, you know what, procedurally, I suppose it doesn't, again, I'm just curious whether it's the planning board bringing it forth or whether it's the landowner bringing it forth.
Okay.
As long as we clarify that for people, that's all I care about.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
It probably doesn't matter, but.
I noticed it now. I was like, wait, we put planning board on this, but it was actually the
Bill,
property. So it's a property.
My understanding is the property owner makes the request to the planning board, and the planning board holds the public hearings on their behalf if they're in favor of it. So the fact that it's on here and that the planning board is having their public hearings probably means that they're in support of the zone change,
Yeah.
which means they'll make the motion, not the property owner.
Yeah, which again is fine by me. I'm just thinking procedurally to make Noreen, just make your life easier.
Correct, Patsy? That's how you guys have done it in the past. If a property owner makes that request, the planning board takes it and brings it through to a completion.
Right. Well, I know that the property owner did the petition and was told to get the signatures, and then the planning board heard it and discussed it. But unless that changed, that's as far as I know, unless since the last meeting that I saw, there was a difference. So the landowner will come up and make the point and answer questions if necessary.
I suppose, honestly, at the end of the day, my only thing is like at town meeting, if we can just verify who's actually sponsoring the article. Regardless of like.
But Bill, I think it's the planning board, again, to what Pete had said. They had to go through the planning board. Otherwise, it's really confusing because now it looks like it should be a citizen's petition. And if someone sees a resident's name, they're going to just assume this must be and went through that process.
Right, yeah. And it sounds like it very well may be the planning board, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought it was, I thought that the citizen had to get signatures last time. So it would be the citizen, but I'm sure we can clarify before the meeting.
But maybe I can clarify I think this was a placeholder to get it onto the warrant, waiting for planning board approval, at which point the planning board would say, yes, we approve this, we support this.
Well, I suppose my thing is that if it's a citizen's petition or brought forth by an individual, that the planning board, in theory, I'm sorry, that it has to get put on. Hypothetically, the planning board, if they were not in favor of it, could still say no, but they'd still put it on. You know what I mean? So again, this is like bureaucratic procedure.
Yep.
The way that we can handle it offline. I just want to know
Okay.
how it's being brought forth. Is it truly by a citizen and that we couldn't keep it off even if we wanted to? Or is it being sponsored by a board? That's like, literally, that's my only question.
So I'll just, this is the specific, wording right out of the zoning act is adoption or change of zoning ordinances or bylaws may be initiated by the submission to city council or a board of selectmen by a proposed zoning ordinance or bylaw by a city council, a board of selectmen, a board of appeals, an individual owning land to be affected by change or adoption by request of registered voters of a town pursuant to section 10, chapter 39. So it actually has it as two different procedures. Right. One by I own the land, I'm petitioning the town to change the zoning, and another as we are a group of citizens that want to change the zoning of that property.
Right. And again, I'm all in favor of this. I just want people at town meeting to know who brought it forth. I mean, I suppose that's my only thing.
Did it say sponsored by owner?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Problem solved. Done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That was simple. All right, where are we?
I think we're done.
Is that 6 and 7 were by owner?
6 and 7 were petitioned by the owner. We will affirm that with planning board to make sure that they didn't change their stance on it. But.
And then 8 and 9 would be sponsored by planning board.
Correct.
Okay.
But 6 and 7 could end up being after planning board review. The planning board could support it. This was they were a placeholder at that point, right? To get them on the warrant.
Right. I mean, they still have to hold their public hearing, which is a week before town meeting. So that at that time they're going to vote whether or not to support or not support.
So all 4 of them actually will get a recommendation one way or the other at town meeting.
Right.
From the planning board.
Yep. Ashley, go play with your dog for God's sake. The poor thing looks lonely. It's not weird.
He's so deprived, he gets no attention whatsoever. He hears all the voices, so he's like, oh, I have.
So just housekeeping, I think we're just about done. Andrew, I know we had been talking about possibly changing the place, right? So the special town meeting is October 13th?
Yeah, so we still have to just check with the schools. One thing we're looking at is moving the meeting to the Shepherd Hill, because we are allowed to move the meeting out of town if needed. Bigger auditorium would be a bigger space, fit more people. We'd actually be able to do it inside. Dudley was able to do it successfully for their annual. So rather than trying to coordinate a Tuesday night outside before dark and getting all the warrant articles in, that might be a much easier way. The other option that we would have would be to move it earlier in the day, but have it during the next weekend, and Karen would kind of have to schedule early voting around it, which isn't impossible, but is an option. So I think that's, looking, I guess, for the temperature of finance and board of selectmen, which one you would prefer. But if we want to keep that date, I would probably try to move it to the high school instead.
I'd rather keep the date and move it to Shepherd Hill.
I guess, and I'm just asking, I guess Bay Path doesn't have an auditorium the size of Shepherd Hill. I've never seen the auditorium.
No, they would, I don't believe so.
And I'm sorry, Andrew, if you said this, I didn't hear it. When will we know for sure?
I'll know by tomorrow the availability of Shepherd Hill. I mean, if Shepherd Hill isn't an option, I'd probably implore you guys to change the date, and we'll probably do that on Tuesday, but I'll at least probably have an answer for you tomorrow.
Okay, because I think it's important that we give the townsfolk advance notices, especially if we're taking it out of Charlton. It might be I don't want to say a hardship, but people driving at night up to Shepherd Hill that never been there before.
We'd have to have the location, date, time all set before the signing of the warrant anyway, so.
Yeah.
You know, I have to have that answer to you by Tuesday, or we'd have to at least have that firmed up by Tuesday anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Shepherd Hill, yeah, just Shepherd Hill may have an issue with that, only because they're starting their plan is to start their hybrid in-house October 15th. So they're just a day or two ahead of that, and they want to do cleaning and stuff. Just an FYI.
Yeah, that's what we still have to clear that with the schools. We just gotta have these discussions this week, so we have to get that affirmed one way or another. So you know.
All right, so are we done?
Noreen raised her finger.
No. Hey, Noreen. Madam Moderator, what can we do for you?
Do I have permission to speak?
Hank, I'm good with that. You good with that?
I'm good with that.
Thank you. I appreciate the thoughtfulness about the safety of the event. I think we're not out of the woods with COVID, and we're entering flu season. So as much as we can accommodate a larger venue, if we have to be indoors or move to a daytime meeting where we're outdoors, I would strongly advocate for that. And then the one thing I would say is that it would be a shame to change the date only because I already had my opening line for the meeting, which is that the 13th of October, it is the 152nd anniversary of Thomas Edison filing his first patent for the electronic voting machine.
Ah.
It was like the perfect.
Yeah, you really put the pressure on right now. I gotta get that.
But that he filed it, he presented it to Congress, and they told him they didn't want to hurry up the voting. They preferred the old method. So it's been 152 years before we actually picked it up, and
Did he steal that Tesla too? No, I'm kidding.
No, Noreen,
Even if we change it, you can still use that.
Yeah, you can still use it. We won't tell anyone, Noreen. That's a good one.
Before we end, I just texted Jean to see it's a citizen's petition that is supported by the planning board. Put the zoning one, just.
And y'all think I'm crazy. See what I mean?
Yeah.
We still think you're crazy, Bill.
Yeah, honestly, well, there's probably more like truth there, to be honest.
But you're right.
Join us if you're good.
We good?
All right.
Anything else?
You got nothing?
Oh,
Go first, Karen? You want me to go first?
you can go first, Hank.
I'll entertain a motion that the Finance Committee close their meeting at 5:43.
5:43. You want to do that again, Hank?
43 here.
Hey, you're not in Florida. Where are you really? That's what I want to know.
Hey, where are you?
Now you're in New Orleans. Come on, tell us the truth.
All right. I'll entertain a motion. Do I hear it?
So moved.
A second? I have a
Second.
second. Okay. John?
Yes.
or no? Keith, yes or no?
Yes.
Christian, yes or no?
Yes.
Carol, yes or no? Thumbs up, Carol. Yes. Jay, yes or no?
Yes.
Joe, yes or no?
Yes.
I vote yes. It's unanimous. We're closed.
Right. So I
Yeah,
too will
motion to
entertain them. What? Geez, can't you wait for us to do this? You're gonna have to wait. Seriously, do you want to go? You can go. You want to adjourn yours, Hank? Go ahead.
Bill made a motion to adjourn. You guys should listen.
No, Karen,
Oh, that was Bill? I thought.
That was Bill.
So sorry.
Second.
It's getting late. I'm getting punchy. Okay,
Second.
we have a motion to adjourn, and Steve seconded it, right? All right.
Yes.
No discussion, I'm assuming. Bill?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Patsy?
Aye.
I vote aye. We are adjourned, and it is, let's see, what time is it? 7:47.
5:47 where Hank is.
See you guys next week.
All right,
Bye now.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Joyful